have a little part in it.
Okay, it's 4 o'clock. Let's get this committee meeting underway, the strategy committee meeting. We're going to have a call to the public. Call the public to restricted items on the agenda. And there's a time limit, but it's not informal, so if you get going too long, we'll call the time on it. Anybody have anything you want to say on the agenda items?
So it's just on the agenda items? Okay. Sure. Are you anybody else? All right, Joseph Ernest Gomez for the court reporter. I had the pleasure of attending the last city council meeting. One of the agenda items at that meeting involved the airport authority working in concert with the city to provide an economic safe haven for development fees. I had heard of this concept.
Just a minute, Joe. I'm uncertain which agenda item you're speaking of.
You guys are going to do a development fee. I don't know what number it is. It's certainly on the agenda. There's an agreement to be signed with the city of Yuma and the airport authority regarding development fees.
I think it's 3
for the hangar.
Number 3?
I think it's 3.
Airport hangar. Okay. Now then, I understood the concept to involve the aviation industrial complex. And so I thought that was certainly a very fruitful concept in its native state. I then learned that it was actually for the Amelia Earhart hangar, which is a millionaire engagement. And I found it to be slightly unorthodox in the wake of the perceived favoritism that has been extended to millionaire that we're all too familiar with. I thought it to be slightly unorthodox that this airport authority yet again would be lobbying on behalf of an airport tenant here. In fact, Mr. Ingold, during a committee meeting in March, an arm's length relationship was actually ordered by Mr. Ingold, and I'm going to cite specific verbatim notes from the meeting minutes as signed by Mr. Gardner. Mr. Ingold stated that YCAA needs to be at arm's length with tenants. Millionaire's new hangar is their problem. The 2 to 5 year deal YCAA is working on with the County of Yuma for Millionaire is not YCAA's issue. He continued that he wants very much to remove the bullseye off Mr. Williams' back. And if tenants see YCAA is working extra hard to help Millionaire out, it gives GA additional ammunition. So in summary, I find that as this board discusses moving forward with, establishing some sort of support for a tenant on the airfield that is reported to have sold 4 million gallons of fuel, I think that there's proceeds enough to go around to where the taxpayer shouldn't be having to sponsor any of these development fees that are being talked about being given relief, $2 million. And I'll close with that. I did want to also mention, I do have a lot of other comments, but I understand that this is not the right forum and it's not appropriate. I do feel as though I would like to address the board. So this is a formal request to be on the agenda for next Tuesday, the 12th of July. And I'm going to give this to Junior, and this is for the board president. So again, verbally, this is a request to this board to be on the agenda at 4 p.m. next Tuesday, the 12th of July, to talk about a number of different issues.
Anyone else? Okay. It looks like we have no other members of the public wish to speak. Let's go to agenda item number 1, which is the roadmap from the Ferguson Group. That is, I would like you to talk about this one. This is one that we've listed sometime in the past. It has several concepts in it that are of interest to us.
That's correct. The Ferguson Group, their contract with the airport authority was to look into the ACIP as far as what we have going for the next future years, especially in consideration with the RSAT, with our Runway Safety Action Team evaluation. A couple of items that they're addressed are the safety and capacity issues that we face, more so the safety, which is taxiway Yankee for when we get more aircraft down in the DCC area with the AIC being built, as well as with the relocation of CBP as well. The lighting, the inadequate lighting that's in that area, right now we have striping enforcement markers. So we were addressing that as well within there, which is an RSAT item. There also were other safety concerns with some pavement rehabilitation, like over in Hotel off that ramp, as well as fire lines in that DCC area. And then possibly in the future to have another terminal there similar to the AIC that deals with our transit aircraft that go and frequent that area, such as Boeing or General Electric. The other capacity issues we had was the larger projects such as the apron and the DCC areas 2, 3, 4, which are right there located to the west of Hotel 1. They also mentioned as well to look at the fuel farm upgrades, as well as hopefully one day we can accommodate and get additional hangars. So that group, though, the way we look at it right now was addressing some of the immediate issues we have, which are the RSAT, which is taxiway Yankee. Right now, what you have itemized here is the ACIP and establishing the roadmap for the work that we're working with the FAA. It's just that they're able to go into the DC area and be able to be lobbyists for the MAP program. That's something that the board asked us to look into here about a year ago. So we did apply to that. They actually reopened it this past year, and then they had accepted applications and closed it. So they're still in the evaluation for that military airport program, which are improvements for airports that have military installation, joint use, or RAPs. So that's something that we're looking into. Overall, I think what you received in your packet too just gave their initial approach, what they like to see, what considerations can be, and then also how we would like to proceed as a board based on their evaluations.
So you're recommending that the three members of the committee do the negotiations of the price for this next phase?
That's correct. And also evaluate their current roadmap and see if that's something that the board, as well as for the vision for the board, that deals with the more extensive funding because of what we're appropriated as far as what we get versus discretionary. That is the angle, you know, if we want to get some of these larger jobs done, if this is something that they vision as far as utilizing a service like the Ferguson Group to go and reevaluate the current projects we have.
This committee is not very big. You break it into a chunk. This might be the chunk. I think we probably can just do this ourselves.
Yeah, I want to have kind of a tag team with a couple of guys off of finance, since there's money involved.
Yeah, it might be.
Instead of having one committee and then another committee.
Yeah, I'm not all that term to negotiate prices. But I do think we should evaluate the roadmap. I'm pretty happy with what we've got going. I'm really happy that it's actually it's moving. So some of these other things, I'd like to see them too. I really would like to see a taxiway thing. I think that's going to be a big improvement for the airport. We could certainly recommend to the full board that they adopt the roadmap. We've got enough in our package to evaluate that, I think. Down the board. Staff have any input on any deficiencies they found in the roadmap?
No, we work very closely with them. So every week and a half we'll have probably about a half-hour discussion to ensure that they are addressing what was stated in the RSAT.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it's driven. It's driven by the RSAT. And then seeing what else we can incorporate that we've also identified in the MAP application to the FAA. So they're using current information that's been published and also what's been discussed at the board. So it is more or less this is what you're saying is based on the RSAT with our ACIP, and then also in the map.
What's the timetable for the next time that they're going to have it?
I'm sorry, could you?
Oh, round robin discussions regarding this. Is there a timetable on the next discussions?
The discussion, no, right now, because Mr. Williams was out, what I told him is once he gets back into the office, that we can go ahead and set up a meeting based after our 2 meetings here, so that those designated individuals off the board can have that discussion with them as well.
Okay. Do you, think you should provide a couple of us to sit in on that?
I think Stan's pretty
I'll be gone for 3 weeks in July and into August, so if we're trying to accomplish something towards during the month of July and early August, that would not be a good choice. So,
As far as
June,
we can incorporate you into conference calls as well, because they do a
I'll be in
teleconference.
Alaska.
I'm
None that I want to answer.
Okay. Why don't between the two of you work with Patty's, try to let her know when you're available, when you're not, and try to sit on that a little bit. Just kind of monitor it. What do you think, Bob? You want to be involved?
I don't think we need more than 2 really to pay through now.
Yeah, I think it's probably be easier for 1 or 2 guys, whatever, to do it.
All right, then we can get a couple of counterparts on the finance side. Probably.
Yeah, I think we ought to have some finance input on the contract. That seems a little out of our area. Okay.
Albert?
Just out of curiosity, what are the budget parameters here? What does the Ferguson Group cost on an annual? Is it a retainer? What type of user fees are we looking at expending for this project?
We've been on a contract in the past. I'm aware of what the value of that contract is.
Do you recall what it is?
Yes. $3,000 a month. We're on a 5-month deal. They're right towards the end of it right now.
Okay.
That's my recollection.
So what, end of July or
I would have to look. I couldn't.
getting close?
That's my understanding. I know that the board authorized them to work on the specific scope that Gladys described earlier. And I think it was the intention that that wasn't going to take, months and months and years and whatnot. It was pretty short.
Yeah, that came out because of our side.
Yeah.
They were the ones that
Trying to get funding for taxiway
kind of
Yankee.
got this taxiway Yankee program back.
I would suggest that going to the full board, going forward with the staff, make sure that they include that information in their brief.
Yeah, if it's a subset of the financial part, probably on Tuesday, can we do that? Would that be possible?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'll ensure that the original document for the contract is included during that for discussion
Yeah.
of the previous.
Yeah, let's just make sure they don't go past spec. For the guy.
Okay, anything more on item number 1? Okay, item number 2 is we're being asked for a recommendation for the development of Building E as a 12-unit container as opposed to the current authorized use as a 4-unit box with Mr. Sims. And the board has recommended that lease be offered to him. I think has it been signed by him?
My understanding that it has, that it was approved in May.
Yeah, we're now for approval by, I think, the lawyer and
Right. Everything was discussed in June,
Yeah.
correct, Junior?
The lease for him to develop it in that manner, in that location, was approved and authorized by the board. The lease itself had been provided to Mr. Sims, as well as the sublease that was part of it, that he needs to use for his subtenants. But he has not returned it signed yet. He's still, that was a short time ago. He's still, he's using that lease as part of his marketing tools. That
yeah, this was going to be a condo style
that's
setup
that's
where the
correct.
units, individual units were going to be sold the tenants.
That's correct. He was authorized to use it either way. He could lease them out or sell the units off individually. That's correct.
Okay, what came up in the meantime, Mr. Alberti was here at the last board meeting and suggested that we look at that as a row of 12 T hangers as opposed to the box hangers. And, yeah.
That was just, I think Mr. Alberti's proposal was only based on that particular location. He recommended that Mr. Sims' proposal for the box hanger to be in the area where the FedEx and Border Patrol old building are.
Yeah. He and I had a great discussion. He's not here today. He couldn't be here today. He and I had a discussion about that this morning and also a little time ago. Both he and I felt that this was not the best use for the west area out there, that smaller aircraft should be based further out, and in actual fact, there's a whole bunch of other smaller aircraft out of there, but large turbines with their wider taxis and all this kind of stuff wasn't the best use for that land. However, after that I worked extensively with both Junior and Gladys here, trying to evaluate the feasibility of putting 12 T hangers out there. And I can tell you there's some real problems with this. Gladys and I kind of went through and used the figure cost construction of the initial Miracle Hangar project, which worked out to be $33 a foot or something like that.
The original Hero hangars.
Yeah.
Based on the contract price and the
We
square
don't call
footage.
those the Hero hangars.
They were 33, a little bit over 33 feet of square foot.
So they were about $33 a foot. Now that area is essentially ready to put more hangars in. Mr. Sims' lease is for those 4 box hangars to go in that area. And he was quite pleased with that area because it's ready for hangars to go in. It has the utilities and all that kind of stuff. And it doesn't require any additional ramp other than maybe some slight patching of the ramp, because all of them would exit to the east and there's ramp to the east. And these box hangars would not exit to the west. If we put in T hangars there, they have to exit both east and west. There is no ramp or anything to the west. So it was a little uncomfortable. I asked Junior to consider Mr. Sims' response to this, and he said it was a little uncomfortable. One quick guy that we've offered the lease for one thing to say, well, maybe we're changing our mind. And he was highly uncomfortable with the words we used.
It was a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
But
anyway,
yeah.
but he came back, he said, well, if you want 12 T hangers there, this is what I'll build. And I believe his fee was about $750,000, was it not?
What he did was he came up with, Mr. Sims is here today, by the way, in the audience. He put together what we were directed to do was to ask Mr. Sims if he would consider building the 12-unit building rather than building the big 4-unit building in that slot. We were also asked if he wasn't interested in that, would he be interested in building the 4 box hangars just north of the Martha Taylor building. He considered both of those. He came up with a cost proposal as to what it would cost him to build the 12-unit facility. And when he took a look at the cost, took a look at the waiting list as to the people that are waiting to get into that size hangar, the cost benefit was not there for him, and his response that he wasn't interested in building a 12-unit facility there. He said that he would be interested, possibly, in building his building north of the Martha Taylor complex. However, there's the possibility of some substantial extra costs with that location, namely ramp, septic, and water considerations. While we believe there's water that goes to that area, he's not confident that the water pressure volume, I guess, is sufficient to run the fire sprinkler system without the necessity of a fire pump. So, all things being equal, if his response was at the airport, if the airport was going to cover all those additional costs, maybe he would look at building it over there. So he wasn't opposed to moving his building project over north of the Martha Taylor complex. cost that he came up with to build the 12 hangar building was almost twice the number that was tossed around at the board meeting at the last board meeting. It was quite substantial. I believe it was 740. It was upwards of $740,000.
Well, I think we're faced with this problem. If we ask Mr. Sims to move the box hangers to the Jaymar area, he has asked that we cover all of the ramp and improvement area to make that essentially an acceptable spot to build in, as is the rest of it now. And I think we came up with a price on that, estimated price on that, didn't we, Gladys?
We did. The price right now estimated is around $50 a square foot if you go by the industry standard. And some architects and engineers will let you know that it's about $70 a square foot, depending on what amenities are offered in there. A building D is approximately a little bit over 15,000 square feet, and that total cost will be a little bit over $770,000. The biggest consideration that you discussed in the conversation, of course, is the waiting list. That there is a waiting list, but that it's seen as soft. That the price of the hangars and what can be charged, considering that it's 60 feet away, you have to make sure that they're comparable and that they're the same price and they're not inflated by any means. Also, to look at the considerations that you would be funding 2 hangars now. You have a match that you have to provide for the EDA grant for the AIC. In addition to that, at this time, if right now you want to do it, you would have to also now look at funding a separate hangar unit. So it's just that the timing was of concern for Albert in his conversation as well with me. Also, the initial cost for the improvement at the old CBP site, if Sims decided that that was a location that everybody wanted to agree upon, and the airport was looking at building another hangar, that there's just initial improvements that need to be made for anybody that wants to develop in that area, us included. And the other thing is the increased risk due to previous stated factors, the funding of 2 hangars, you know, what's there financially, what are we looking at, that improvement, what it brings, and then the overall cost. And just, I mean, working with, I mean, we're very lucky that we have developers who want to develop here. And so at the same time, though, we also want to accommodate those who utilize it. So it's kind of, it's up to the board on how they'd like to approach this.
Yeah, what's the actual cost of the
The CBP site? I have not.
That nut.
Yeah, I have not. First of all, they're still in the process of cleaning the site up. So the environmental mitigation, which I don't think that there shouldn't be any issues there, but they just pulled those grates up, so they need to look at that first. And then we have to actually hire an engineer that's going to go and then create a set of plans and design for that area. So.
Sure.
Yes.
I'm sorry, guys. I sent a request in to perhaps have the engineering civil drawings out and everything. Were you aware of that?
For the CBP set of plans, I don't have anything for that, for the Jaymar. I don't. And then for the Hero hangars, we do have a set. I need to go through that, but I don't think it's a complete set. It says phase 1 on it, so I don't know how many phases there were when we built the Hero hangars.
You weren't here then?
No.
Okay.
I don't even.
Let me dispel one thing, and then there's been this question about the fire protection water, and that's my former occupation. I reviewed the plans from the previous hangar and reviewed the city water maps for that area. The fire protection from the existing Mr. Sims building is the same as would be for the proposed new building at the Jaymar site. So let me dispel that rumor. Okay, that's from me. So anyway, I'd certainly like to still find out what exactly we have as far as utilities in the Jaymar area. We're going to need it in the future anyway. Possibly, can you follow up on that, class?
Mr. Gardner?
Yeah, I think there's 2 ways we can approach this. I believe that it would not be wise for us to delay Mr. Sims' project by going off in another direction. At the same time, if his project is not ready to start, and he doesn't really care whether he builds it in the J-Bar or in the west, built east, which is out, from my understanding is,
Say that again?
do you care where you build this at?
It's not so much about care where I build it. Obviously, the site that we've chosen already is far more prepared and more in line with what's already existing. We would actually have to try to figure out another way to do it if we went to the other side of the JMR building, which I haven't had any engineering or anything done on that part, whereas I have done on the other part. So it's not. I'm not against it. It would, if it fell on me to absorb all the costs, it would just be a done deal. We wouldn't do it.
Well, what I'm thinking is if they were equally acceptable.
If they were equally acceptable, I really don't have a problem with it. I just have to look at access for these bigger turbine type planes that would go in something like that versus a 172 or something. I'd have to be able to see that these planes can actually taxi out of that and not have 6 inches of wing clearance between the JMR building and the next hangar.
Yeah, that is one consideration.
I mean, it's a what I'm talking about putting in there is large aircraft. They're 55 plus wingspan, and if you go sticking that somewhere that you can't get that airplane out of, it's like building a boat in a basement. You run into problems. So I'm not opposed to it, and as well, I'm not opposed to building you guys a 12 hangar unit. If you can find me 12 renters or 12 buyers, I'll build it.
Well, that is a concern. There's no doubt about that. Okay, I just want to make sure if the ground was equal.
If the ground was equal, I'm not opposed to looking at it. I can tell you that right now.
If we continue this discussion and kind of play around this, is it going to hold up your project?
I'm okay with that. If we can do this within the next couple months and get this thing wrapped up, I'm happy with that. We've worked extensively with the legal staff from the airport over the last 4.5 months to get the lease worked out to where this could actually be possible, because before I approached this, it's never been done. Okay. So we're starting with a new animal here, and I'm not opposed to looking at all options.
Okay. Well, I want to make sure that what we do doesn't negatively impact your project.
It's not. The people that I'm dealing with that actually want to purchase these aren't in dire straits to get their aircraft out of the sun. They're already out of the sun, or they're not purchased yet.
Okay.
So I've got some in my hangars that are accommodated as well. So it's not something like that, but I would like to for it to be sooner than later. A couple months is not going to kill me.
Okay.
I don't want to go another 6 months through another legal wranglings and all this stuff that we've already been doing. But I mean, I'm very open and willing to work with you guys and figure out honestly what is the best place for this hangar to go. Okay. And more input the better.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Gammett, did you have any input?
Yeah, no, I think it's a fantastic concept. One thing to add, I heard that there may perhaps be some rehabilitation costs associated if he wanted to do it in this new location, and I think that there's some ramp and rehab and construction incentives that are being provided in the Amelia Earhart construction. I think that Mr. Sims, in light of the fact that he's investing all this capital in the airport, he should be afforded the same entitlement. And so if the cost of doing business involves the airport having to invest in some ramp space, I think that that's only fair.
Okay.
Albert, I'd suggest that the next strategy meeting that we have both sides of this coin, the facts are right laid on the table for us. So the staff side, we need to know what the cost is and squaring away the new property so that it's an equal to the existing property. And then if served, if possible, if we could get a confirmation that if the site was to be moved and it was to be squared away ramp-wise and all that, and the utilities and all that, we take care of that side. Would it accommodate the wingspan and the taxiway?
And that's honestly something that engineering would have to answer.
Yeah, and that's an answer that we would need to be comfortable with.
Sure.
So if we can do the infrastructure side we're gonna need to see whether or not the planes actually fit.
Okay, I think that's something.
Then we can make a decision, one way or
Right.
the other.
Well, there's some other things you want to talk about too.
Yeah.
Well, I'm concerned about the list. We've involved in a number of discussions over the last few months. And can we take that down? Can we become more confident in, is there really a customer base? Show us the money. If there isn't a customer base, that relieves us to look at a different customer base that Mr. Sims is representing with the floor.
Yeah, that 12 hangar deal.
Junior, I think, can answer your question on that list. He has done some extensive work on that list.
Yes, I'm pretty familiar with the list, because I've been working, with it for years. As you know, I've used the term a couple of times that the list is soft. When I used to call folks, they would jump up and down. They heard from me, finally in there, they're ready to get in. Nowadays, over the last year, more likely than not, when I call somebody, when their name comes up, geez, we appreciate the call, but they're not really interested any longer. The situation regarding the folks that are on a waiting list for a Building D hangar is there 12 people total on that waiting list. Now, the waiting list costs nothing to get on. We used to have a fee, but we changed that up. We made it a lot easier to get on the list, and I think that they enjoy it being without cost. Of those 12 people, I can tell you that I've spoken to a couple of them personally, and they will not take a D hangar if it comes available. So that's 2 of the 12. We also have another gentleman that's on that list who has already turned one down already. And then we have 4 others that are on the list that are already tenants. These are folks that are already in other locations that would like to be on the other side of the building possibly, or when one comes up, maybe it's closer to the restrooms or closer to the gate or whatever. So they're looking for a better position. So when you take those folks out, we have 5 people really that I can be very confident that they would move into a D-sized hangar when it becomes available. And the person on that list that has been waiting the longest got on the list on February 7th of this year. So that person has been on the list for a relatively short period of time. The list, it's not uncommon for somebody to be on the list for a Building D, the corporate box, the larger ones, for 2, 3, 4 years. The list, it doesn't support it. There's always the argument, and this is true, that when hangars become available, I've seen where people buy aircraft, the demand arises. For example, Mr. Sims mentioned that one of his interested parties hasn't even purchased a plane yet. So there's the possibility that there are some folks that would purchase aircraft because there's availability of hangars where they probably wouldn't other than that. But that's a whole lot of slots to fill. And, if I was to go to our banker and say, I'd like you to finance this based on these guys that I think, these 5 or 6 guys that I think that will move in, plus 5 or 6 more that may come out of the woodwork, I would feel much more comfortable if I had 15 solid names on the list, at least 20, hopefully. I want to be able to fill it. And then you've got to have the waiting list to keep there from being vacancies. You lose your revenue when somebody moves out and you don't have anybody to move in. We had the situation earlier, which was unprecedented. For 3 months, we had a hangar that was vacant over here in the northwest corner. I've been an employee here for 11 years, and that's never happened before. The situation, I would imagine, the economy, whatnot, has had a dire impact on it. So there's, those factors. I would feel much more comfortable if I was going to the banker with a list of 20 folks that I knew were going to be in. And we just don't have that right now.
Mr. Chairman, with our current rental rates, what's the break even on 12?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
What's the break even on the 12 unit? Occupancy break even.
Well, it would have to be full. And we wouldn't be able to pay for it with the $360 a month that we charge now based on the cost. And it was a hard estimate that Mr. Sims gave me when he determined that he wouldn't be interested in it. he gave me all of his backup on the homework that he did to find out what the cost was. You not only have to make a payment, though, you've got to maintain these things. The doors require work all the time. Mr. Carter.
Here again, for the risk of sounding like a broken record, from my other airport, we had a similar situation. We had dire straits. We had no hangars available. We had a waiting list. And we came to the point to where we were able to develop. We had enough money to develop all the infrastructure and set aside. I forgot the exact number. It's been 6 years since I was on the board, and 6 years since I sold my hangar there. I was the last person to build a hangar before we started the new batch. And we had the argument very much the same, is that the waiting list, there's only 3 or 4 on the waiting list that are real solid and so forth. Within a year or two, we had built, or the people had built about 12 hangars within a year. And you build them, they would come, or they were just waiting for the availability of the area to build the hangars. And my last trip up there, sometime back a year or so, the whole project was built, everything, solid hangars. So I think it maybe the economic situation has a bearing, which I'm sure it does. But when you build them, they come.
Well, do we have an alternative site for the smaller?
Well, yeah, we could.
Another location for an E facility?
We could put the small hangars in the Yuma area.
So it's not like we're running out of room right now.
We're not running
We
out
can't
of room.
accommodate both. We just can't accommodate both right now,
Well,
economically.
the financial arguments are pretty powerful. As Jimmy says, we couldn't pay for this.
Right.
If we had them all rented, all 12 units rented, $360 a month, we can't
Still won't
pay
pay.
for them. You know? Unless we can build them cheaper than that figure. You know, and if they could be built cheaper, I'm assuming you would do it.
Let me kind of allude to where you're going with that. The figures that I provided to the airport, they're hard figures off of what I just spent building mine and adjusted for square footage. Plus, the inside of a 12-unit T-hangar building is completely divided down the center and partitions between all the hangars. In a 4-unit deal, you have 4 walls, period. So it's a lot more material. Just to give you a rough, 180,000 pounds of materials for a building basically like what I want to build. To do that building is about 240,000 pounds. So it's a great deal more of material. It doesn't, you wouldn't think it because of the size of the building, but it's all the stuff that's inside. Plus, that takes more time to put up. There's more footings inside. It's just on and on and on. But everything that I provided you, Junior, Albert, you're more than welcome to look at. He's got a folder that holds all the bids that I used to provide you guys this number, and it's a good number. I'd stand behind it all day long. So it's not something that I just pulled out of the air. When he told me what you guys were wanting to do, I'm open to anything. You know, give me the people and I'll build it. But I have to also at the same time be fiscally responsible and not build something that I'm not going to be able to provide support for. And if I've got 5 people, even if I had 10 people, at $360 a month, it ain't going to cut it. At the end of the day, I'd leave my money in the bank and make 0.5%. I'm ahead of the game.
Where's this $360 a month? I pay $400 and something.
You got a different size hanger.
That's because you look like you got
Maybe I need you for a client.
No. I build my own.
I think that's one argument. I think we're going to have some real problems getting around. The whole financial aspect of this does not look good.
Mr. Gardner, if I may, one other issue we need to be aware of is timing. The property north of the Martha Taylor building, which you guys are calling the J-Mart complex, has had the CBP operation there for years. It's undergoing an environmental review right now. They've moved their operation into their new facility. We offered to take care of that responsibility for them, their exit plan regarding refurbishing the facility. The lease that they had on the Martha Taylor building stipulated that when they left, they had to refurbish it back to the condition that it was in when they leased it originally, which was a long time ago. And not only that, but they have to leave the property environmentally clean and certified to that effect. We offered to provide that service to them, and they have essentially declined. So they're doing that themselves. We're confident that in the end, they will return the facility in great shape, and the ground will be clean and certified. But I'm not confident that it's going to be done anytime soon. And that's going to dramatically affect the timing of being able to build anything on that ground. The United States government is the one that's involved in the testing and environmental remediation at that site. And I couldn't tell you when that will be completed. There is no timeline or time frame to get that done stipulated in their agreement. And since they pay almost no rent at that facility, there's nothing that pushes them to get that done as soon as possible, other than our pleas, because it costs us money and we're not able to rent the hangars out. So if the plan is to move Mr. Sims to north of the Martha Taylor building, one thing we need to really consider is that we don't know when that property will actually be available to be developed.
It may not be 2 months, but 2 years.
I just don't know.
Junior, just out of curiosity, what triggers an environmental assessment of that nature? In other words, was FedEx subject to the same sort of environmental remediation project? Or I'm just trying to understand for education's sake what triggers that sort of remediation task.
The terms of their lease.
I'm sorry?
It had to do with
The requirement is stipulated based on the terms in their agreement with the airport authority. The reason the CBP is required to leave a clean site is because that's what's in the agreement.
One final word.
Yeah.
I looked at the site today, and I looked at your existing building. Was there any ever question, or was it ever brought up about putting the building directly to the south, where you had facing buildings?
Okay, which building were you looking at?
Your building,
The one I own now?
your current building, see,
And was there ever a question of
placing another building right to the front of yours, to the south of your building?
to the south of mine, basically on that bare strip, that bare piece of property? There's two things that come up there. And yet, to answer your question, yes, I have looked at that. Anytime that the airport, this is just from what I understand, anytime the airport accepts money to put ramp in, and they get a grant for it, if I go pulling that ramp up, they've got to pay it back. So that one piece of property, there's two problems with it. It's not big enough to put any sizable hangar, A. B, there's a fiber optic line that runs underground from the tower straight across to MCAS. I can't put anything over it. So it limits, that looks like a great piece of property, but when you look at the actual, what you can do with it, there ain't a whole lot you can do with it.
It's just ramp space.
It's just ramp space. And the reason they didn't pay this, and this another deal they educated me on, is for the reason that if they wanted to do something there in that area, as far as buildings, whether it be hangar, offices, anything, if they went ahead and paved that with grant money and then later on tore it up, they would have to pay that money back that was given to them to start with. So now they'd have to start pulling money out of their pocket. So yeah, it just didn't make sense. It can be utilized for a smaller hangar, and there's ways to put something there that would accommodate that fiber optic line going through there, because there's no way to get a place with the MCAS to let them to build over the top of it. It's just not going to happen. They want access to it 24/7, 365, 100 years from now.
I know all that underground utilities, so you're right.
So it looks like a great site. Office buildings, no problem. You put a mezzanine between, or a traffic area between. You could dig it up any day of the week, but you can't build on top of it. So that's what kind of makes that piece of property not valid.
All avenues.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree.
Mr. Scott?
Yeah, I was going to ask Mr. Sims off the record, but did you guys go through, if you put it on the west end, assuming where you want to put your hangar,
Mhm.
your 4-unit, and if you have some big turbine planes come through there, is there going to be a problem with the smaller planes underneath the T-shades? Is there going to be any dust stir up, the people that are facing north on that outside T-shades over there? Is there going to be any problem? Because we were always hollering at different times when they would come in with helicopters because it stir up so much turbulence and stuff and set down on between the Miracle hangars and Mr. Garza's maintenance thing there. So is there going to be any kind of problems there? Otherwise, if there's not, and that's been addressed, it sounds like to me, because of what Junior said and the economic problems and Mr. Sims and what he's already done, it'd be better to put them on the west end.
Well, we already have turbines that go up in there and load, turn around and load.
Sorry, Mr.
Go
Gardner, I
back
can't
out.
hear you.
Sorry,
Sorry, I can't hear you.
we already have turbine aircraft that go up in that area and
I wasn't
then
aware of
load and
that.
turn around, so
Yeah.
I can't imagine it's any worse.
I've seen the PC-12 and
Okay.
300 in there.
Well, the other thing is we've got to consider is, I think the finances of this are really poor. If we have to come up with money to rehabilitate the ramp so that the JMR area can be used, and the amount of money we get back off of that project is very, very low. Round and only.
I've looked at a
So
lot of
we've
other
got to put
options.
in 100,000.
I'd actually like to build them over by my hangar right now, but there's just no
In order
place.
to get ground rent off that area, it just doesn't pay. We can't afford to build the hangars as a second spec project. We've got the airport to industrial center already going. So, I don't know. I believe that it's probably worthwhile to keep this whole thing open in terms of looking at various aspects of it, but I think that our recommendation probably should be that tell Mr. Sims build that with all due speed. If things are different, they would be different.
I think we're beating a dead horse.
I'm afraid we are. I think apparently we can't rebuild our Hero hangar complex for the prices we've put in there already and rent it out for what we've got. So do we have a consensus on the recommendation to the board?
Yeah.
Okay, let's make that recommendation to the board then, that we tell Mr. Sims, as soon as you get it done, get it done.
So it'll be option C, Mr. Gardner. Chairman.
You have options here?
You do. Option C says that there is no negative financial impact to the YCAA if the developer builds the hangars west of the Hero hangars. This plan does not require a capital investment by YCAA. All costs will be covered by the developer, and the monthly ground rental is approximately $765.33 monthly.
Okay, option C. Yeah,
I agree with that.
I didn't read that part. You're surprised, Mr. Lattice. You have more material here than I want to do it. Junior?
Mr. Gardner, I may point out, Mr. Sims successfully builds this building, it will free up some hangars. More than likely, he's going to take tenants of ours, more than he will have folks with brand new aircraft. And so there'll be some shuffling. There'll be some people that'll get into the larger hangars that they've always wanted to get into. I know there's a guy that's looking to get into Mr. Sims' building, if he builds it, that has 2 smaller hangars now. He wants to put both planes in one hangar, so there'll be some shuffling and there'll be some freeing up of some hangars.
Yeah, I think it's important that we kind of let the dust settle from that, and see, because we still have places we can build hangars. That just looked like such a nice place to build hangars.
I agree.
The size that we already had. That was the problem. So, okay, let's move on to option or item number 3. This was a discussion to sign a development agreement between the city of Yuma and the county relative to the construction fees. Do you have any information on that, guys? You've probably been working that extensively, don't you?
I have been introduced to the project as far as the development agreement goes. Just the background information that was provided within the board executive summary or committee summary is that this project actually was approved on March 13th of 2012 by the board as far as development within there for the hangar project itself. The lease amendment that was approved for the property was then approved on May the 8th. Now, with respect to the development agreement itself, the development agreement is a standard agreement that many developers use, or that they use out with the city, and what it is they do it in phasing plans. We are not paying any fees that the developer is obligated to pay. That includes plan review fees, impact fees, environmental fees, permit fees. The developer is all responsible for that. The first year they're going to construct the shell itself. There's no occupancy in there, there's no one in there, there's the hangar door at the most, and there's no windows. There's nothing within the structure, just the shell and the footings to hold the structure. There's no development, no ingress, no egress. There's nothing to that site that someone can sit and be in that and utilize that facility. After that first year, they're obligated to pay those fees to build the shell. So they've already went through a structural review fee, so they already have to pay that. They also have to pay the plan review fee as they go and develop into the next section, which is phase 2. Phase 2 has to be completed starting the year after, or right after, immediately after, once they find a tenant. And they have to, it's based on the stipulations with the city, they have to develop within 5 years. That's something that, the due diligence of the staff will ensure that they have to find their tenant for that facility and then develop within those years. Again, the airport is not responsible for any fees, any development fees or whatnot for that facility. That is the responsibility of the developer. So when you look at this, what you're looking at is phase 1, which is the shell. And then phase 2 is going to be the customization for the tenant that's going to occupy the facility.
So, they may not even put a floor in that when they put the shell up.
There is no, they cannot construct the floor. No. And phase 1, that does not specify in their phase 1 that we submitted to the city.
Okay. Well, I think that this is the sort of thing that we should do for any one of our tenants. Anything we can do to reduce impact fees and development fees for any of our tenants.
I want to clarify, we're not reducing any impact fees
or
development fees. What we're doing is they are deferring them into the second phase. So we want to make sure that that's not interpreted that way to anybody. We are making sure that they're held to those fees in the second phase of the development. It just allows them to find a tenant so that they know what their funding is going to be occupied, and it's to the specifications of the tenant that's going to occupy that space. Whoever the private developer is, we also always encourage them to build, and that's the biggest thing, and that's why we're doing this development agreement. We have not had a development agreement of this sort with the city for any of our facilities, and I want to make that clear as well. NASA was built, that facility, the Pappy Bowington, was built all in one phase. The Pappy Bowington built at the hangar was built all at one time. The Aviation Industrial Center will be built all at one time. All of the fees and impact fees and development fees are covered within that phase as well. This is the first time that we're actually going through, and it's just because we're trying to find a tenant that's going to occupy it and make it customized, that hangar customized for that. We're looking at long range. We want someone that goes and picks a facility and stays there for a long duration of time. We're hoping for that developer. But the developer is the person responsible for all those fees.
So in the future, we could utilize this again if somebody wanted to come in and build a building.
Absolutely. If it meets the requirements that the city outlines.
Mm-hmm.
And just so you know, this is something that you have to work with the city with and their planning department, and they view it based on what are you looking at and what is the benefit to the community. I mean, they have all these other factors that they factor into it. So this is constructed so that they can encourage as far as the economic development as you've seen in a lot of the meetings. And we're not the only ones who do it. A lot of a lot of developers do the same thing. You usually see it in the housing, but we most definitely, it's something that we hope that it will bring people to want to develop on the airfield.
Okay. There was a staff recommendation that the airport director signed this. I see no reason not to have a discussion on this. Perfect.
The only heartache I have is that it's the developer's responsibility, and we've gone in and carried the water for him the entire amount of the entire weight. And our name is on the bottom of the agreement, regardless of what the lease says, that he is responsible for it. Our name is still on the agreement. There's nothing in there that I can find in the entire agreement. I read it from page 1 to page back that I can recall that encumbers Freeman or Millionaire. We're encumbered.
And why is that?
That's my question, is why is that?
That's correct. The person that has to ask for the development agreement has to be the property owner, or those who operate the property or are responsible for the property. Now with due diligence, and of course with making sure that they understand their responsibility, that's the biggest thing with developers. We've established that with Mr. Sims. We want him, he's built here, he got a facility and he's built it. You have to entrust that he's going to meet it to spec and to code, but he's leasing the ground. For his occasion, because he had everything ready to go, he didn't need a two-part deal like a development agreement. But if it was something that he needed and all he could afford right now was to erect the structure and then find the tenant, he would have been asking the same thing as well. In his industry, he has done the same thing. It's just now he's into the development on airfields. So, I mean, if you guys want to ask someone with subject matter expertise, you have a contractor sitting in the back row that most definitely can talk to you about this. So, I mean, I understand your concern, though, absolutely. I'm most definitely going to tell you the agreement is between the Airport Authority and the City of Yuma, that we ensure that these phases go through and make sure that they understand their responsibility. And that's a part of what the contract you hold with the developer as well.
Okay. So do we have a consensus on this item that we asked the airport director to go ahead and sign this?
Yes.
Okay. Item number 4 apparently is a little bit of housekeeping with Enterprise.
The Enterprise Holding, the entity name change, you guys are going to see in another agenda item with FedEx. This is a little different. Enterprise Holding, they went from a Delaware company-based LLC to a Phoenix-based LLC. So what they're asking is just the entity name change. It's still Enterprise Holding, it's just that now they're managed through Phoenix versus the Delaware company. So what we're looking there, of course, is a motion to recommend for the authorization of the assignment change with the entity name change on their current lease. There's no impact to their operation, or there's no difference inside of their lease agreements that they have.
Okay. Any discussion on this one? Okay. Looks like we'll recommend that that can be done. Item 5 with FedEx lease. That is what
The FedEx lease, Setzer is the property holder right now, and what they did is a company called American Realty Capital is working and they have already bought, as far as all of the contracts and the properties they manage. They have now taken over the Setzer properties. What they'd like to do, there's a lot of other things right now that the legal is looking at, our council's looking at, so this is just more advisory in nature for the committee. But what they're looking at is they actually have a separate LLC, that only American Realty Capital manages, but they have a separate LLC that will only deal with the FedEx properties. FedEx has a very unique way of making their payments and where their facilities are built. So this is something that we really need the council just to double check, make sure all the different contracts that they're asking us to do, it's not like the FedEx where it's just a name change. It's actually a different managing company. So this information was for what's going to be supplied to the board agenda or board meeting on Tuesday, but this is something for everyone just to know that it's going to happen in the future. We just need to make sure that we get council recommendation prior to any signing or switching over the properties.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, this is kind of FYI.
That's correct.
Will council be making their presentation for Tuesday?
No, they will not
They won't
be.
be ready.
No, but what we will do is probably just give an overview, pretty much like what I've explained to everyone here, and also to explain that the FedEx property, the way the property is situated, there's an easement for them to ingress and egress because that's a common driveway for any future development along that road. So that also is something that the legal counsel needs to go through to make sure we have it incorporated into their release. That's something that American Realty Company has asked us to look into. So there's a couple of other items that we just need the council to look over, review. There are attachments there for the lease agreements and the modification, as well as the requests. And then we're also still going through and making sure we evaluate the credibility of that company that's coming on, that's going to take over the lease.
Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
let you know, this is Suzanne Nichols Minor, representing Marine Finish. I've done a lot of work on this particular project, and just to let you know, we do have right now some concerns about the financial stability of this American Realty, which is really where our biggest concern is. And so we're in the process of discussion with council for those two other companies to try to secure that for the board before we give you our recommendation on that, because that's the biggest thing at this point. Not to mention that the separate FedEx lease, and I want to make sure that that's understood, this is just for the building itself, not the sub-lease between Setzer and FedEx. And Setzer actually pays their rents to the authority directly, and FedEx to Setzer. So that's partly where our uneasiness with the financial stability comes from, and that's why it's taking longer than the parties had hoped.
Okay. Okay, moving right along, then item number 6 is, I asked to put this on the agenda in about minutes. I'm not happy with what's happened with our minutes. I think that we are spending a great deal of money accomplishing very little. The way the minutes were before, staff summarized them into a form that had some limited amount of discussion. Didn't attempt to capture everything that was said by everybody, but attempted to make sure that we met our legal requirements and that I'm searching for words here for a moment, so that we met the legal requirements of the board at a minimum. And we tried to do a little bit more than that, but basically we were trying to make sure we met the legal requirements. We degenerated, in my opinion, into a situation where we're spending a great deal of money, no offense, and it's actually quite useful. However, in reviewing the minutes, I discovered that I spend most of my time saying very little. Could easily abbreviate the whole thing. We're taking video minutes. We have a transcription. Members of the public are taking video and audio recordings. And I think that when I first came on the board, we had a restaurant that we were losing $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year on, and we were upset by it. We're spending probably a sum similar to that, taking minutes, and I think it's a complete waste of time. So the people that care about the minutes are taking them in whatever form they want. If they have complaints or arguments about what we're doing, they have a forum. Mr. Gamez is providing a forum for criticism. And so I think that we should, in my opinion, knock all this off, get back to what we were doing before.
Okay.
What do you think?
I got one comment. I think it was 1 or 2 strategic planning subcommittee meetings ago that a recommendation was agreed to by the group, and when I saw the minutes, the generalized minutes, I didn't see an agreement in there, and it had to do with how if a person's security badge is pulled by the director, that there needs to be a procedure put in place for an appeal. Okay? Now that subsequently is being dealt with by the staff. It's going to be reported to the board. Okay? And we got that squared away. However, I didn't see it in the minutes. Well, I went back to the video. Okay? And the video was 100% of what's going on. I saw the discussion and the agreement. I went, got it. Okay? So referencing that was very easy to clear that up and to make sure that the next general meeting that's going to be addressed and just cleaned up and scored away. It wasn't forgotten. Subsequent to that, I also went back to the minutes, read the minutes. Yes, it's there, but it seems to me, I agree that it's overkill If you have a video of the entire proceedings, no need for a transcript. If you're going to have a transcript, there's no need for the video. Okay, that we do. It seems like, you know, we're paying for the redundancy, and we're beyond what I would consider prudent use of the authority's money. You know, one or the other's fine. So
I think staff's recommendation was that we continue the video recording and then just put it on file for inspection. Was it not?
Yeah, the recommendation from the staff is to eliminate the transcripts, but keep unedited videos posted on the website to make sure that there's
has to be.
That it's exactly the way it looks here, and then placed on the internet, on the website, and that minutes are still taking, but they are summaries of each agenda item as previously done. So they're not as thorough as her transcribing, but it is the same detail as far as the executive summaries that you guys are provided to make sure that that's all placed into those agenda item minutes.
And then if you have questions as to the accuracy of that, then you can review the video. I think what it would say is that each of us as committee members or board members have a responsibility to review the minutes and make sure that they reflect those areas of concern. So, yeah, I want to go through on the board first. What do you think, Stan?
Well, I felt that to make the minutes more robust was appropriate, but I think the level that we have gone to is excessive with the opportunity now. Originally, we didn't have the opportunity to have the videos on as a permanent library, and now they are. Plus, with them being displayed outside when the number of people coming exceed the capacity of the room, it's now available outside. So I agree that we have the accuracy of the audio and video recording. I agree with you that it's nice to read the minutes. I don't need to read about every breath I take. But we need to be concerned, as Dean said, that critical things need to be reflected in those, and we need to be careful that we don't overlook them, and that the opportunity is available to correct those every board. And it's our job as board members, when we see something, as Dean did, to confirm that, yeah, it really did happen, and we need to correct those minutes.
Mr. Crook?
I basically second Burley's comments. I had a previous discussion with part of the staff today regarding the situation, and the audio-visual video thing will serve the purpose.
Okay. Any comments? Mr. Campbell?
Yeah, I kind of sense that you're suggesting there's a tremendous amount of overkill in between all this. However, let's understand that the root of the unrest associated with the minutes and the whole conversation started because there seemed to be a chronic problem that the minutes absolutely did not reflect what was discussed at this table. And so, again, I don't want there to be any impression that we're kind of sour grapes over here, just wanting all these different entitlements as far as a transcriber and video. All we want is for the public to understand what was exactly said at this table. And I think for a very long time there was a tremendous filtration system inserted into the production of the meeting minutes. And I couldn't agree more. Having that camera, whether third parties elect to video and publish those by way of a blog or anything else, that's a separate conversation as well. I think that as a public entity, there needs to be some legitimate documentation as to what happens at this table in these meetings, and that's unilaterally, that seems to solve the problem, in my opinion. Not putting music over when someone talks where comments are, construed as objectionable to some folks. I think that, that is in fact a violation on many fronts. But uncensored, unedited video, I think would absolutely suffice and negate having to have any other sort of meeting minutes, to include yourself even having to write anything. I think that it certainly fills that void.
Okay. Mr. Scott?
originally wasn't going to say anything, but I will now. You guys all have and I agree totally with what the board's saying. It's no reflection on you. It is overkill, but you do have one small problem. I don't know if it needs board approval, but as long as Mr. Williams, and I know he means well, but as long as he's filtering or censoring the minutes that you put. I mean, if you're going to put uncensored minutes on the website, perfect, because we had that conversation. But I went and talked with Janine about it, and when I went to the website, I thought something was wrong with my computer because all of a sudden I got music. What I feel you're doing is adding fuel to the fire. It's the old saying, if you build it, they will come. If we stop the censoring and the board is totally transparent and it looks like they're going that way with the meetings and stuff we're having, it'll eventually go away. And the animosity will come down to a very low simmer. And honestly, that's what I'm looking for as much as the rest of them. I mean, these guys are my friends. I understand where they're coming from, but I'd also like to see, with what Mr. Ewing says, that animosity come down some, you know. So as long as you allow, and I say I don't know if it needs to be board approved, but as long as Mr. Williams takes it upon himself to censor, then it doesn't look transparent. And I have to back up to a couple months or so ago when I said, and
well, can I interrupt you?
Sure, go ahead.
It's not our intention to censor them. We're going to put them unedited.
Yeah, that's
okay.
The staff recommendation again is to...
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and that's good. But
so not to revisit the past.
Okay.
I would like to get out of here.
Okay.
The reason I'm slowing this down.
That's okay. That's all right. Go ahead.
Board intends
Thank you anyway.
Taking this recording and
then just
filing it away and putting it on the web.
That's correct.
It's okay.
Now, does that include retroactively going back? Because there is some edited content at the moment.
That would be outside our purview, I think. This particular one, our recommendation, this agenda item was for minutes that would be taken in the future. So whether or not we decide to do that will be a board action.
That is the call to the public also.
Excuse me?
Is that including the call to the public?
That will be what happens in front of that camera from start to finish.
That's correct.
That's correct. Finish. If you're still here, you'll get cut off.
Mr. Chairman.
Just like I did.
Mr. Chairman, I think that the call to the public will be noted as a speaker. This was my understanding, that it will be noted as a speaker, and he spoke on insurance, he spoke on hangars. The unedited portion of it will be the tape itself. That was my understanding.
Well, I talked to my wife a little bit about what the hospital does with minutes, and she says these things can go on for long. So she says often it will simply say, after much discussion, the board decided to do this or that or the other. You have to have it's legally required that we put down the actions that we take. So we have to do that. We do not have to go on at length about the discussion that I'm feeling, as I understand it. But in any event, we have a law firm that will keep us in compliance with the open meeting law and out of jail. And so I believe that, as I understand, our recommendation will be that we go back to posting the video, unedited video on the internet in our files, and have previously procedures for taking minutes readopted. Go back to that.
And then also the transcriber.
And without the requirement of transcriber. I've always wanted to say this, you're fine. I don't have the hair for a conflict. Okay, that takes care of that one. Do we have any updates on construction projects, that sort of thing?
Well, I can cover as far as with the airport director's update.
Okay.
Of course, we spoke about the FedEx lease, and that's something that, of course, will be handled by our council. The UAS update, as far as that goes, just so you know, we did submit, as the board requested, the request for information. Mr. Gorley and Mr. Haggard did a great job.
Excellent.
And not to the FAA, it's actually, I apologize, to the ACA. That's my typo. I apologize for that. So they're in review right now. We'll have a conference call with the ACA on Wednesday. And so that's the whole collective measure from us to work with the state as far as the UAS is concerned. So they had a request for information and comment on a couple of things that they were looking at, and I think that will be covered in the next board meeting. The FAA grants, we still are, and we are actively working towards the project, which will be the taxiway Zulu widening. And when we get into that project, we'll work with making sure that we have things posted for the general aviators, make sure that we let the FBO know, as well as any of those that may be of concern that transit and frequent that area. So that will be 3 phases, and it'll take some planning, just so everyone's aware as well. On top of our current projects, the Marine Corps Air Station will be doing projects as well, and they are rehabilitating their runways. And I think they're going to be starting with
I
1735.
think they're actually going to paint some lines in the center of those runways.
Yes.
They're working on 826 right now.
Wow.
Yeah, so they are.
I'll be able to get off there at night without having to drive 5 miles
Well, I
an
didn't
hour.
say that, but I did say there would be some.
So they're working on that. But as far as our FAA grants, the one that we have will be taxiway Zulu widening.
Yeah.
That will be the one. EDA grants right now, where the AIC, the Aviation Industrial Complex, is out for bid, and the bid closes on the 10th. So we'll be opening bids on the 10th. Yes, sir.
Did Chris say that we're on schedule with all the addendas and so forth?
That's correct. He posted, today is the 6th, so he actually sent out, gave us his final addendum that was the other day as far as addressing all the concerns. So right now, we're on schedule for the 10th for the opening.
Good. Without going back and looking, what time is it?
2 o'clock, sir.
2 o'clock.
Here. All are welcome. And then the ADOT grants, the terminal modification is the addition of restrooms, which is yay, because the customers are all looking forward to that. And then the commercial ramp rehab, that's basically rehabilitation of the existing joints that are out there, a lot of the backer rod and the joint filling material. We're not pulling up a bunch of concrete. We don't have the means to do that at this time, but eventually down the line, there's some rehabilitation that needs to happen on that ramp for spawning. So those are the current items that we have right now that we're looking at. And I don't, Mr. Williams had the previous for the John Ewing lease. There must have been some discussion about that previously, but I don't have anything to report on that on my end at this time.
Okay.
If you guys have any questions for me, I'm more than happy to answer them as far as what current jobs we have, if there's things you'd like to know.
Anything else from the committee?
Just to remember the ceremony for the folks that donate their time down at the
The
US
military,
Solid-
the military comfort center will be at 3:30 on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And that's important.
It's very
Because people
important.
donate a lot of time to
I'm a little early up.
If you can, absolutely. They'll appreciate meeting you guys. They're actually looking forward to meeting the board members.
Good. Yeah, that's worked out well down there, hasn't it?
They have. We're very, very lucky.
Well, if we have no further business. Okay, let's do it. We're adjourned.